Mr. Chairman, or excuse me, Mr. Chairman. This Mr. Chairman, you're up now. Ladies and gentlemen, our County Commissioner Chairman, Kevin Corbin.
Thank you. What a wonderful turnout. Thank you guys for being here. First thing I want to do is recognize my fellow county commissioners. I'm proud to be a county commissioner here in Macon County, and I'm proud of these guys that I work with, and they do a wonderful job. They love Macon County. And we'll recognize Mr. Ronnie Beal up here in front. Ronnie, if you would stand. Ronnie. And you already met Jim Tate, one of our presenters. Jim is our representative from District 1 Highland, Jim. And up here is Mr. Ron Haven. Welcome, Ron. So I want to thank them for all they do and the time they put in. You know, a lot of people have been thanked tonight, and talking about this Franklin Tubular Products thing, let me tell you something, and everybody in the room will agree with me. Oh, and I forgot to recognize our county manager, Jack Horton. Welcome, Jack. One of the best county managers in North Carolina right there. Sorry, Jack. A lot of people have been thanked, but talk about Franklin Tubular Products. Let me just tell you the story. You remember, and the Franklin Press, I remember the front page, and it was accurate. The headline said, "No deal." You guys remember that? No deal. And you know why it said that? Because there's no deal. It was off. Nobody was going to buy it. There were closed doors, grass grew up through the parking lot. Tommy Jenkins went to work, and he helped put that deal together. Now, I'm telling you what, Raymond, I'm telling the truth, am I not? Tommy Jenkins came to me that day in my office and said, "We can't let this happen." He called Joe Collins, and Joe, you remember that day? We met in the county manager's office, myself, the mayor, Tommy. I had one other commissioner there with me because we can't meet three at a time because that's illegal, Jack. You know, we can't do that. And we met, and we decided we're not going to let this happen. So the county commissioners agreed to put money in, grant money, the town did. Tony, the state of North Carolina did. We all worked together, Republicans, Democrats, tall, short, worked together and made this thing work. That's the way government should work for people. That's the way it ought to work. And Tommy Jenkins helped put that deal together. So Tommy's done his work for the year, but you got 7 more months. Just keep going, right? And I wanted to thank Abigail for beautiful songs, and I thank her for coming and sitting by me. She came and said, "Oh, I get to sit by you for a minute." And it was a blessing to me because I looked to my left and saw my friend Tony. I looked to my right and saw Ron Haven, and things were looking pretty bleak. So I appreciate you coming and sitting by me for a minute. You're a breath of fresh air compared to these guys. No offense, but let me tell you, I got to be honest. I had the honor to introduce Tony, our guest speaker, and I got to be honest with everybody here. You were not our first choice. We called Governor McCrory and asked him to come be our speaker. Due to his schedule, he called back and said he could not come. He said, "But you need to get Tony to come speak for you." And you guys are going to know why. This guy's brilliant. He's a wonderful guy. I'm going to tell you just a little bit about him. I'm going to read this so I don't forget anything. He's a native of Atlanta, Georgia. Tony graduated from Vanderbilt University in Nashville, Tennessee with a Bachelor of Arts degree in History and Economics. He also completed the Advanced Management Program at University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. In 2008, Tony Almeida was named Vice President, Large Business of Duke Energy. As part of the Retail Customer Service Group, this large business team was responsible for managing business relationships and services to the company's largest manufacturing, commercial, and institutional customers across the Carolinas and the Midwest. He retired in 2011. You thought you retired. Then Almeida joined the governor's administration with 32 years of management experience at Duke Energy, where he served as Vice President for Economic Development. Tony Almeida joined Governor Pat McCrory's administration in January of 2013 after serving as the Economic Development Director for the Governor's Transition Team. Tony Almeida is the Senior Advisor to Governor Pat McCrory for Jobs and the Economy, and it's an honor for him to be for us to have him in Macon County tonight. Welcome, Tony, as he comes to speak.
Good evening, everybody. It's great to be here in Macon County. I like to start these presentations by saying that I'm from state government and I'm here to help you. I see my friend Mark West back there, who we worked together at Duke Energy, Nantahala Power for a while, and we used to have this saying at the company that when the internal auditors would show up at the branch office or the generating plant, they would say, "I'm from internal audit and I'm here to help you." And the local manager would always say, "And I'm happy to see you." So I am really happy to be here in these beautiful mountains in Macon County, in this great western North Carolina, in this wonderful church facility here with those huge stones outside lining the parking lot. And I was greeted when I came in the door by another Tony Angel. So an angel greeted me when I came in the Baptist church. It sure was nice to be greeted by an angel. I did mention Mark West, and I used to come up here back after the Nantahala Duke Energy combination and spent time with Mark touring the local Nantahala offices. And Mark would put me in his truck and say, "Today we're going to go to Bryson City. No, then we're going to go to Robbinsville. And then we're going to go to Andrews. And then we'll go to Highlands. And then we'll go to Cherokee." And he took me all over western North Carolina, and I remember it fondly and really appreciate the opportunity to come back and be with Mark and his family here. Trudy Whalen is here. Trudy, would you stand up? And Trudy, served in the legislature, and Trudy is the governor's representative in western North Carolina. And so give her a hand. And so if you have any concerns with state government, please, in western North Carolina, please let Trudy know. Also, I see my friends from the Department of Commerce, Bill and Cindy, raise your hands. I'm glad they're here taking care of existing business and industry and supporting Tommy with the work in recruiting new industry to the region. Scott Hamilton's here from Advantage West. Scott, I think all of you know Advantage West, the regional organization that Macon County is a part of. And Scott has is doing a great job in his regional leadership, and Scott is now helping us design the future, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then Mr. County Manager, it's great to see you again. He reminded me that we first met in 2007 when we announced the Google project in Caldwell County, and he was working in Caldwell County at that time. And look what happened just this past Friday when Google announced they're doubling their investment in Caldwell County, and some great stories there. And also, I met, while I was in the line, Deborah Sloan from the Department of Agriculture. Is Deborah here? Deborah, stand up. The largest industry, the #1 industry in the state of North Carolina at $77 billion. Deborah, thank you, and the Department of Agriculture for what you do. I brought a bunch of slides. I don't know if I need... Oh, they're ready to go. Okay. Well, let me work through the slides pretty quickly and share with you some of the things we're trying to get done in Raleigh. And let's start with the first slide, which is pretty depressing. Actually, our state unemployment rate is now down to 9.2%. But we have an underemployment rate, meaning people that have part-time work and want to be in full-time work, or they're in a job that their skills are not fully being utilized. Almost 1 in 5 North Carolinians are underemployed in our state. And then that last bullet, we rank number 37th in per capita income. Now, I'm not a PhD here and talk to you a lot, but if you go to the next slide, you'll see that in the decade of 2000 to 2010, North Carolina actually lost ground in per capita income. Why is per capita income important? Because at the end of the day, it's a measure of the prosperity of our people. Prosperity of our people. And we lost ground from 2000 to 2010. And actually, the Southeast gained a little bit, and the U.S. as a whole gained a little bit. So we need to be thinking long-term, ladies and gentlemen, about how we restore our citizens to a more prosperous economy for this state. Okay. We start with strong state leadership at the top. I have known Governor McCrory for over 30 years. In fact, my claim to fame is the last 4 years he worked at Duke Energy, I was his boss. And now he is my boss. And you know what they say about paybacks. So I'm really having fun working for him, and he really has a great vision for the state, and we just all need to get on the same page at the same time and work together to make that happen. If you haven't met Secretary Sharon Decker, Bill and Cindy's leader, she is just outstanding. She is very visionary. She's got a great vision for where she wants to take the state economic development efforts, and I want to talk to you a little bit about that. So go on to the next slide. Next slide. So let me talk with you, if I could briefly, about some key things we hope to accomplish in this legislative session and in this new administration around improving the business climate, if you will, in North Carolina. And the first thing is tax reform. And go on to the next slide. And take a look at this chart up here and see how North Carolina compares from a tax perspective with our neighboring states. These are states we compete with on a regular basis. Let me just tell you what we're trying to do. We're trying to, working with the House and the Senate, trying to reform the tax code in North Carolina, which has really been in place for probably some of you that have served in the legislature 40, 50, or 60 years. And it's based on an economy in the past, and the economy has really changed and been transformed over time. So what we're trying to do is develop a tax code that's more fair, more simple, pro-growth, and more competitive. And if you look at where we are, starting with that middle line, the personal income tax rate, our top marginal rate, as you probably know, is 7.75%. It's actually 7.75%. Need to update the slide. And if you look at our competitors across, what we have as a target, the governor stated this during the campaign, is let's reduce that top marginal tax rate down to where we are equal to or less than Virginia. Let's reduce it by 2 percentage points. It may take a couple years to do that, but that's a very important thing to do. Then the corporate tax rate you see is 6.9%. We want to get that down to where it's equal to, less than or equal to South Carolina, which you see is 5%. So how are we going to do this and keep a revenue neutral approach to the budget? First of all, we need to close some loopholes that are from decades ago. We need to eliminate some exemptions and probably need to start looking at broadening the sales tax base, not in a large way, but gradually broaden it so sales tax can pick up a larger share of the state income, the state revenue stream. So tax reform is a key priority. I just got back from Chicago at the Bio International Conference, and we had the opportunity to meet with 7 different companies that have invested in North Carolina, have hundreds of employees, have significant facilities across the state. And when we talked about tax reform, we had their attention because they know how important it is as they compete with companies all across the world. Let's go to the next slide. And regulatory reform is very important. We need to maintain, obviously, our right to work status as a state. We need to continue to focus on tort reform and workers' compensation. But I want to talk about environmental permitting. The environment is very important. We've got a new secretary in the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. He has told his group, he has given them a new mission. We're going to uphold good environmental science across the state of North Carolina, but we're going to help businesses navigate the permitting process. And I think, like this gentleman here and this great company here in Macon County, the last thing you need are some environmental folks coming in and raiding your facility and causing you problems and giving you fines and hurting your competitiveness overall. We need to be helping companies understand what the permitting process is and helping them work through that permitting process. So that's what we're committed to do with this new secretary in the Department of Natural Resources. Let me talk about education and workforce development for a minute. This quote that you see up there is a quote that the governor has heard all over the state. And it's really a disconnect in our workforce development system when you think about the fact that we have 22 different workforce development programs. We have them in 6 agencies. We have them in 15 different divisions in those agencies and 500 sites across the state of North Carolina. When you consider the Employment Security Commission offices, the Job Link offices, the Career Readiness Centers, the community college career readiness efforts, all of that, we have got to do some streamlining of that, have some one-stop offices where people can get what they need and be served. But we've got to do a better job as a state in that, and so that's a top priority for us. But here's an example of what we need to be about, talking about, Mr. County Manager, the Google success in Lenoir and Caldwell County. There's a gentleman named Paul Bowman, 41 years old, grew up in Lenoir, worked in a Broyhill furniture manufacturing plant. Then went and worked in a Corning plant down in Hickory. Apparently lost his job, went to Caldwell County Technical Institute, entered in the program there to get his IT certification and diploma. And got that diploma, went to work for Google when it was announced, and has already been promoted as an operations engineer. Those are the kind of successes. We've got those successes in Macon County, and we need to have those kind of successes all over the state of North Carolina. One of the big questions that was posed to us in the transition period, November, December, was what is going to be the overall strategy for economic development? Is the governor going to focus on just the large metro areas and help them grow? Or are we going to spread the peanut butter over all 100 counries? And this administration is about spreading the peanut butter over all 100 counties. And I hope that makes you happy, and we're absolutely committed to it, and we'll talk more about it. Supporting small business. Gosh, we had a wonderful example of entrepreneurship right here that was just honored, very appropriately so. Very exciting. And we know that most of the jobs in the state and across this country are created by small businesses. So the one thing we've already done is let's make it easier for small business people to start a business in North Carolina. Currently, you have to call a 1-800 number about your business licenses. You have to work with the Secretary of State's office depending on how you're putting your business together. And we said to ourselves, what are other states doing? And we benchmarked, we looked around, and we saw what Virginia had. And that was a one-stop portal where you can go, Virginia One Stop. You can go and find out all the information you need, the licenses, the permits to start a business. And so we have, in these first 2 months, we have written the business requirements for that portal, for a North Carolina portal, and we're going to get that up and running by the end of the year. Our information technology team has it. It's very exciting to watch them working on it and making that become a reality. Agribusiness, let's see, where's our agribusiness friend back there, Deborah? The #1 industry in the state of North Carolina. Commissioner Troxler corrected me and said we're now up to $77 billion in terms of the contribution to the overall state economy. There's no reason why we can't drive that up to $100 billion. Deborah, would you agree? And that's what we need to be about. I know agriculture is important to us, and so some things that the state has already done. The Council of State approved a deal where private sector companies coming into the Wilmington port going to build refrigeration units so that we can refrigerate and ship out more of our poultry and pork and other great agricultural assets that we have. The governor's already said when he goes international, when he is traveling to sell the state, he's going to be talking about North Carolina agribusiness and what we can do to sell more of it. Venture capital. We've got great universities. You've got Western Carolina up here, great university. We've got a great university in Asheville. We need to be about leveraging the good ideas in those coming out of those university classrooms and putting them to work in terms of starting up businesses and providing the capital necessary for those. Energy policy. we've got an opportunity to further develop, or really to start develop our shale gas deposits across the state, to look offshore at working with South Carolina and Virginia around collaboration and energy exploration, including wind development, and using all of the resources that the state has in terms of developing an energy future. The state of Ohio, coming out of the Great Recession, had a 9% unemployment rate. You know, they're very fortunate that they have a great deal of shale deposits in Ohio, just like Pennsylvania. Their unemployment rate's now down to 6.7%. Yes, the automotive industry has come back and that has helped, but exploring shale gas and taking advantage of that has been important as well. And then finally, growing the military and defense sector, I think, is critically important, mostly in the eastern part of the state, but certainly we have opportunities across the state to contribute to this sector. Let me just say one thing about this sector. We are receiving in Fayetteville, at Fort Bragg, and in other of our military bases, wonderful American men and women who have served in Afghanistan and in other places across the country. And they're coming back and ending their tour of duty. And they come back as electricians and mechanics and machinists, welders, whatever the case might be. And those skills need to be put to work in North Carolina companies. I'm sure, Mr. Plant Manager, you would welcome having more veterans working in your plant, and we've got an opportunity to take advantage of that and figure out how this state can make that happen. We're doing it in some of the cities like Charlotte and the Triangle area. We need to be doing this all over the state, and that's on our agenda. And then finally, we've got to have a plan. It was probably 2004 when the Economic Development Board developed our last strategic plan to grow the state. But we're about focused on that and going to be putting together a team of business leaders and academic leaders and thought leaders to help us come up with a plan to grow the state. What we need to be doing is bringing the new dollar back into the state of North Carolina in all 100 counties. It's not just about recruitment, as Tommy Jenkins knows. It's about serving existing business and industry and helping existing business and industry expand. It's about tourism. I got to believe tourism is very important in this county. And we talked about honoring the folks at the great resort. Tourism, travel, sports management, the film industry is very important. Small business, entrepreneurship and innovation. We need to be about international trade. How do we ship more great North Carolina products out of this state and around the world? So all of those bring the new dollar into our state. They don't just recirculate dollars. And let me just close by talking just a minute about an announcement you heard a couple of weeks ago, and that is that we're going to take our Department of Commerce, and this is working with our House and working with the Senate. We're going to take our Department of Commerce and we want to move those functions to a public-private partnership, much like Advantage West is a public-private partnership, much like many of our counties have public-private partnerships. The benefits of doing that, it further engages the private sector in both energy and funding in your economic development efforts. It gives you an opportunity to establish a strong culture of performance. It gives you more nimbleness and flexibility, efficiency, just like a company has when it comes to making decisions and working outside the traditional political framework. What we want to come up with is a first-class, outstanding sales and marketing organization for the state of North Carolina that every one of you can be proud of, and that we can all know that when we go to market to sell this state, we've got our best foot forward. We're committed to doing that, and we are working now with members of the House and the Senate to make that happen. 10 other states have done this, some of our competitors, like Virginia and Florida. Indiana has this, Michigan, Ohio, Missouri, Utah, Arizona, a number of states have been successful with this model, and we think it's time for North Carolina to move in that direction. But at the end of the day, economic development is local, and it happens at the local level. And what we need to do at the state is to make sure that we understand your needs and that we work together with you to develop programs, policies that will support your needs so that we can all be about creating 21st century sustainable jobs. So that's what we're all about. Thanks for the opportunity to let me come and be with you, and be happy to visit with any of you afterwards. If I could, Tommy, if you'll let me do that, Mr. Chairman. And so thank you, and Abigail, it's a pleasure being entertained by you, and I'll look you up on iTunes when I get home. So.
Actually, Tony calls me Mr. Chairman because I think we share one thing. We've both been chairman of regional partnerships at one time. So, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Chairman, don't take offense to that, please. I'm an ex-chairman, as my wife calls me, an ex-senator. I asked her to quit calling me that because it sounds like I've been indicted for something.